Hey, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whenever you're watching this. Welcome back to B&B Hockey Talk. I'm Aaron Bloxel with my co-host, Mr. Matthew Balzer. And we've got a show planned for you today as we continue our 31 in 30 days. Remember, smash that like button. Don't just hit it. Smash the like button. And share our feed. We're loving our amazing fans so far that we've got. And thank you so much again for tuning us in. I'm calling again from the center of the universe, where Mr. John Tavares is already, the countdown's on till opening night here. And we've got a great show. But first, some devastating news in the hockey world. Matthew, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, so yesterday it was reported that former NHL goalie Ray Emery passed away in a boating accident. It was around 6 in the morning. He jumped into the water, swimming, and he never resurfaced. Just devastating news. He was one of those awesome character guys that could sometimes rub off the wrong way on guys, but in the end, he was very entertaining. I think some of the memories that I remember. Well, it is the big brawl with Buffalo.
Absolutely.
Yeah, where he fought Marty Biron and Andrew Peters, and in the 1 year that he played in the KHL, I remember this video. He gotten pulled from the game, and the trainer wanted to put a hat on his head, but he he didn't want to wear the hat, so he attacked the trainer and stuff. And just on a positive note, in the 1 year that he played with Ottawa, where he had a really good year, he took them all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals. That was 06-07, his best year in the NHL. Took him all the way to the Stanley Cup Final, which Ottawa still hasn't gotten back since. He did win the Stanley Cup with Chicago in 2013 and was part of winning the Jennings Trophy with Corey Crawford, I believe, for the lowest goals against average in the league.
Yeah, at least he was able to get his name on the coveted Stanley Cup. But just terrible news. Rest in peace, Mr. Ray Emery. For me, one of the greatest thing is knowing that he was one of the toughest guys on the ice at all times and really stood up for his teammates. So why don't you touch
79.
Sorry, go ahead.
79 career penalty minutes.
More than the Sedins. No, I'm kidding. Well, on a positive note, why don't you take us through some of the signings that happened today around the NHL and catch us up to date on all that?
All right. So first, a couple over the weekend. The Columbus Blue Jackets were busy wrapping up their two final RFAs. They signed defenseman Ryan Murray, the second overall pick, behind Nail Yakupov to a 1 year, just a little over $2.8 million. And one of their former first-round draft picks, Oliver Bjorkstrand, to a 3-year deal at $2.5 million. The Montreal Canadiens gave Philippe Deneau a 3-year deal, just a little over $3 million. The Anaheim Ducks gave Adam Henrique a 5-year extension, just over $5.8 million. What we brought up on Friday with Calgary and their RFAs, they locked up Elias Lindholm to a 6-year deal at $4.85 million a year. And lastly, the Nashville Predators locked up goalie Juuse Saros to a 3-year deal at $1.5 million, and forward Ryan Hartman to a 1-year deal at $875K. So a lot of names there. Some pretty good deals, I think, for I like the Bjorkstrand deal with Columbus is a good money wise, and Juuse Saros getting him at 3 years at $1.5 million.
A lot of money going out to Lindholm and Henrique for sure. They definitely cashed in. So as we continue our 31 teams in 31 days, Today is the Carolina Hurricanes, of course, Stanley Cup champions back in the early 2000s. But we're going to go through their team, starting off with the forwards, and Matthew's going to take us through the forwards.
All right, so we got a really young forward group coming this year. The first line, it will be their big line, in Sebastian Aho, Jordan Staal, and Teuvo Teravainen. Aho is one of the up-and-coming bright superstars in the league, and him and Teravainen really formed a good 1-2 punch on that line. The second line was Jeff Skinner, Martin Necas, who was a first-round pick for them, and their other first-round pick from this year, Andrei Svechnikov, will form that second line. Skinner, we still don't know if he'll be there for the start of the season or if he'll get traded, but as of right now, that's a really good high-scoring line. I think that'll prove pretty well in this year. The third line will be that veteran checking line. We got Michael Ferland, Victor Rask, and Justin Williams. Michael Ferland, I'm really glad as a Canucks fan that we don't have to see him charging guys and getting away with it all the time. And Williams has just been Mr. Consistent over the years. And then for their fourth line, that was Brock McGinn, Jordan Martinook, who they picked up from Arizona this offseason, and Philip DiGiuseppe as that fourth line. Couple extra forwards that should be pushing for spots this year is Valentin Zykov, Lucas Wallmark, and Yanni Kukkonen. All these guys had really good offensive years in the American League and will be pushing for spots.
Definitely a very young forward core. But I think it was funny, we both said that Necas and Svechnikov are going to make this roster and have immediate impact offensively for this team. They're super young. They're probably one of the youngest forward cores out there. And I can see them having a really good year offensively. Just want to make sure, Matt, that I'm coming in clear, because it's where I'm at. My internet's kind of shaky. So.
Yeah, it was sort of just cutting out a little bit there at the start there.
Yeah.
But it's good now.
Perfect. It lets me know, I think, when I'm a little bit shaky. So we're going to touch on some of these incredible prospects here in just a few minutes. So we'll touch on some of those players again. Great young potential team here. On defense, we got Jacob Slavin, Justin Falk, Kelvin DeHaan, who they just signed, Dougie Hamilton, who they just brought in from Calgary in that big trade, Hayden Fleury, Brett Peach as their top six, but they definitely have a lot of depth here. Signing Trevor Van Riemsdyk as a UFA. Another prospect that we'll touch on again is Jake Bean, who I think is going to really push for a spot on this team, probably in the top six. And, of course, another young guy, Roland McEwen, who they got from the Los Angeles Kings. So definitely a lot of depth at that position. We touched on how Jeff Skinner may still be moved, just like Noah Hannafin was. It's very possible that Justin Falk will be moved as well. I don't think Carolina's done yet, especially with the new ownership and everything that's there. I can see them potentially doing some more moves. So why don't you touch on some of the defense there if you want to add to that and bring us into the goaltenders.
All right, yeah. Just on paper, Carolina's defense is pretty rock solid. But we'll see with Falk being in those potential trade rumors. Because on that right side, having Hamilton, Pesce, Falk, and Van Riemsdyk all there, those are all NHL defensemen. And even if you want to throw McEwen, that's another right-handed defenseman. That's a lot of guys vying for a couple spots. Goaltending wise, it'll be an interesting move here with Peter Mrazek signing there from Philadelphia. They're taking a chance on Mrazek. He had an up and down year between Detroit and Philadelphia, but they're hoping he gets back into form and can be a number one goalie. Their second string will be Scott Darling, who well, like Eddie Lack, who they traded for, they tried to get him to be that new number one goalie, and man, did he have a terrible year last year. So Carolina will be hoping that he can have a bounce back year. But yeah, it'll definitely be different with not having Cam Ward there, who's played there his entire career, but signed with Chicago this offseason. So it'll be definitely a different look. And their third stringer, I'll try to get his last name right, Alex Netkovic. I'll go with that. Will be their third stringer. He had a solid year down in the American League. And if one of these two goalies don't pull through or anything, he could get some time this year in the NHL.
Awesome. Yeah, I still think Scott Darling is going to really battle for that number one position. I know they brought Peter Mrazek in, but, it really depends on which direction they go. I mean, if they give Darling the shot at the beginning of the season and he plays well, he may win that starting position. But it's going to be hard to say. I mean, they might have 2A and a 2B as far as goaltending this year. That's definitely going to be their Achilles heel, I think. As far as improving over last year, definitely might stall them from growing, even though they have a younger team. I think they're going to take a big, they're moving in the right direction for sure. So they lost a few UFAs like we talked about, Cam Ward. One of the ones that's still unsigned is Lee Stepniak. There's a few other minor ones that are unsigned still. I don't see really any of those players coming back into this fold at the time. Was there anyone that stood out to you, or there's pretty slim pickings right now, I think, at this time, right?
Yeah, it's pretty slim pickings. Stepniak is still an intriguing player. I think he was injured for basically the entire season. I think it was with concussion problems or something like that. But he has shown in the past that he can be a 40, 50-point guy. But he's been mostly a journeyman around the NHL. So he could be an intriguing name if somebody needs help in their bottom six to take a shot on it.
Well, let's touch on their incredible pool of prospects. They've been doing some amazing drafting the last few years. We've already touched on a few of them. Feel free to touch on some more on some of those guys, because I really think Svechnikov's going to have a great season as far as points-wise. I really believe Neshkash is going to step in and have a solid season. We're going to see the likes of Kukkonen. I'm going to try this one. Maynalainen. And then, of course, Jake Bean pushing for that spot in the back. We've touched on a few other ones. Why don't you take us through some of them, and we'll touch on them.
Okay, so Svechnikov should be up for the Calder Trophy this year. Could see him sort of putting up Brock Besser numbers like we saw this year. The guy that I brought up, Valentin Zykov, I think he will be pushing for an NHL spot. He had 33 goals in 63 games down in the American League, and he had 3 goals and 7 points in 10 games when he got called up towards the end of last year. Another guy, Lucas Wallmark, a centerman, had 55 points in 45 games in the American League, and will really be pushing for one of those spots. So if Netcash isn't ready, I could see him getting into that lineup. And Adam Fox, who will still be going back to college this year, who they got in the Dougie Hamilton, Michael Furlan trade. I think Calgary feared that he wouldn't sign back with Calgary and that they lose him to free agency. But this guy, I believe he captained the U.S. at the World Juniors this past year, and this guy screams superstar defenseman. I think I'm not sure if he brought up Alexei Sorella. He had 25 goals in 69 games down in the American League. He's another center iceman coming up that will be pushing. So Carolina's got a lot of good pieces here coming up in the system that will be pushing for those lineup spots.
A couple more prospects that maybe keep on the radar. They're not people that are going to make the team, I don't think, right away, but in the next year or two, watch for Julian Gauthier, along with Eetu Luostarinen. both high draft picks.
Yeah, sorry, Aaron, you're not coming through.
I'm not coming through? All right. There we go. Can you hear me now? Matthew, can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
All right. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now, Matthew?
Yeah, the video still isn't moving. Yeah, I can hear you, but the video isn't moving.
Okay. Well, why don't we, because of the connection here, why don't we end today? I might have lost you again. Yeah, the connection's pretty poor today. Why don't we end it there? We're gonna touch on another team tomorrow. So again, I'm Aaron Bloxel, you're Matthew Balzer, and we're B&B Hockey Talk. Smash that like button, share our feed. We're going to give you a shout out if you share our feed, and continue to follow us. Thanks so much for being great fans, and we will see you guys all tomorrow.